In today's video, I'm going through the latest crypto, DeFi, and on-chain news for this week. Welcome back to Dynamo DeFi. My name is Patrick, and as a reminder, this video is not financial advice. This is purely intended to be for educational and information purposes. Now let's get into it. To start, let's look at where the market is overall right now. If we look at Bitcoin price, then it's had a very strong few days, back over $63,000 as of the time of making this video. However, important thing to watch is, does it make another lower high as it has for the past several months this year, right? In March, in April, in May, and then again in July. So will it make another lower high or will it break above that? And in terms of DeFi, the TVL has also rebounded, although not quite as dramatically as Bitcoin, although there can sometimes be a delay in this. We're still pretty far below where we were in June at nearly $170 billion at $132 billion. And of course, still below the all-time high from 2021 of around just under $190 billion. Important thing to note is that TVL is often reflexive with price. So if prices go up, as that starts to translate down to alts and altcoins go up, which are overrepresented in TVL compared to Bitcoin, then we should see this increase as well. And I am expecting this to eventually hit its all-time high. And in terms of volume, like I've noted in previous weeks, although the summer is typically slower, we have actually had DeFi volumes hold up fairly well this summer, where they're pretty significantly above where they were at the first couple months of this year for most of the summer. And even now they're above a typical day earlier this year. So as people get back online, get back from their summer vacation, then this activity should start to increase again. And that of course means higher APRs and means more stories about people making money, which tends to attract more retail. Before we go further, I want to quick make a thank you to SKALE Network, which is sponsoring these weekly segments. SKALE is a chain that's focused on high throughput gas-free applications. They have a ton of games on there, and they also have these ongoing quests on swell.skale.space. That's scale with a K. I'll link this down in the description for you to check out. All right, looking again at the total market overall, stablecoins, this is probably the most positive stat right now. Stablecoins are almost at their all-time high when you exclude algorithmic stables. So algorithmic stables, that's like Terra, UST. We'll take that out because that was an anomaly. It wasn't really backed by anything and eventually imploded. But if you look at the actual ones that are backed by something, whether that's crypto or most commonly fiat or so cash or treasury bills, it's almost at its all-time high. It's all-time high. If we go back here, the all-time high is right around 167.75. Let's see, I forget exactly which day it's on. One of these days from early 2022 was 167.75, but it's almost there, about $500 million away. Any day now, literally, it's going to hit it and surpass it. And this is an incredibly important stat because stablecoins could be thought of as a proxy for overall liquidity in the crypto market. And if stablecoins are going up, it means new money, new liquidity is entering the crypto market. And you can see that as it was rising last year, it really preceded the start of the bull run that we saw later in the year. You could argue the bull run started back here, but in terms of actual significant price movement, the stablecoin movement preceded that by a few months. And you can also see here from 2022, the outflows from stablecoins preceded the actual crash by several months as well. So this is a phenomenal sign, and it's a reversal of the flat to flat down that we saw earlier in the summer that had me somewhat concerned. I also want to note that there's been a lot of news with stablecoins this week, and I think this has really established itself as one of the premier breakout killer use cases of crypto. So here's a couple important pieces of news. So here's this analysis from this Juan Leon from Bitwise Invest. Stablecoins now hold about 1% of US Treasury bills, 1%. And this analysis predicts that they could rise even higher. But even at 1%, think about that. It's one of the largest holders of treasury bills now. Tether is, and then all stablecoins together. Imagine once that's 2%, 3%, 5%, 10%. That's at a point where really as an asset class, as an industry, it almost requires respect and being taken seriously and also being treated fairly, because it just has such potential to impact a variety of things. Another interesting piece of news is Tether is launching a new stablecoin pegged to the UAE currency. Anyone who is deep in the crypto industry knows that there is a lot of crypto activity, a lot of crypto people. Probably many of your favorite influencers are based in Dubai, and so it makes sense that Tether is trying to target that market. I'm not in Dubai, by the way. I am right here in the United States. And another interesting piece of news, Wyoming is launching their own stablecoin in Q1 2025. Do I expect this to be the biggest stablecoin in the world? Frankly, no. However, there's that saying, slowly then all at once, I love to use, and I think this is a good example of that, right? Do I think that this stablecoin is going to be, all of them? I guess it could happen, but probably not. But the fact that more states and more institutions are launching their stablecoins, for example, PayPal has their own stablecoin now as well, then basically you're going to hit a point where there's a critical mass of those things, where more and more financial assets, more and more payments, more and more everything that crypto can do starts to shift over to blockchain rails, because it is superior in many ways to traditional rails, and you just need to get that critical mass and network effects first. In other stablecoin news, earlier today, BRICS is launching a UN pegged stablecoin. So another new stablecoin launching. I'll be very curious to see the direction they take this with this. Will it be on a public blockchain? Will it be on a permission blockchain? Will they try to seek liquidity on DeFi markets and exchanges like PayPal is, or will, again, this be kind of in their own segmented ecosystem? So TBD exactly how this works, but again, slowly, then all at once. And then finally, so this is stablecoins pivoting to a chain that's been getting a lot of attention, and that chain, some of you may know, is Tron. And before you roll your eyes or turn off the broadcast, just hear me out. We're going to talk about, sort of from an objective point of view, what is there to like, what is there to be skeptical about with Tron. And so Tron, if you look at the weekly change in DEX volume, Tron is the very clear winner, especially out of major chains, up 436% in 7 days. And it is, let's see, if we look at it by month, it's, August is already best month in years since, in 2 years. And if you look at it by week, you can see that it's really been an incredible week, and just by day, probably one of the top 20, top 30 days ever. And 2021 bull run, it had some pretty large days. So what is going on with Tron? Well, for one thing, there is this application that's a pump.fun fork, or I don't know if it's a direct fork, but it's based on pump.fun, called SunPump, and it's for launching meme coins. And that has been getting a ton of usage. And because it's been getting a ton of usage, people are bridging over to Tron to trade meme coins. And in fact, there was one day earlier this week when more tokens were launched on SunPump than were launched on Pump Fun. So, kind of funny to be saying these things, but there was at least a surge in meme coins on there, and maybe we're seeing a bit of a rotation to Tron. That's not really my thing, but it can be, a way to bootstrap an ecosystem. But there are actually, it's important to note, there are people who are really using Tron, and there are actually a lot of them. Tron, if you don't know, is one of the top chains for stablecoins, with over 35% of stablecoins are on Tron, nearly $60 billion. And those are not all stablecoins that aren't backed by anything. They're not all crypto native. In fact, they are mainly Tether. The vast majority, $58.46 billion worth, are Tether, and most Tether is on Tron, by the way. And the reason for that is several-fold. First off, exchanges that use USDT frequently use Tron. So when you're trading Bitcoin to USDT on Binance. You might think it's Ethereum USDT, but more likely than not, if you're looking at the actual assets Binance has, it's Tron USDT. And it's like that for a lot of historical reasons. Second, Tron USDT is frequently used for peer-to-peer payments. Here's a tweet from earlier this year from a friend of mine that specializes in investing in Latin American crypto firms. And here he talks about how when he's making real-world payments in LATAM, the options he often gets are USDT on Tron or Bankwire, and talks about how Tron and Tether are dominant in B2B cross-border arena. So that is like an actual use case of Tron, and that's a pretty important one and ties into stablecoins. I don't know whether this meme coin mania will last. I would say I would be somewhat surprised, if I'm being honest, if it lasts. As far as what to watch for to tell if this movement onto Tron continues, there are two things. First off, DEX volume. Are they able to continue this growth? We saw a really strong week over the past week, but does this continue? Does this hold? Does this increase and approach its highs from 2021 and 2022? You can see that the monthly traded volume is still way below those months, or does it retrace to what the norm has been over the summer? Second is, right now, if you look at the DeFi applications on Tron, then there are a couple dozen. If you look at deposits, maybe a dozen with real usage, and those probably have various degrees of involvement from the developers. And really most of the TVL is on 3 applications: Just Lend, Just Stables, and Sun. And all of those include the name of the founder of the chain. And so what I would really want to see would be more DeFi applications launching on Tron and more new DeFi applications starting to gain some traction, right? Is this a chain that's dominated by just a couple DeFi apps, or is it a chain where anyone can launch permissionlessly and actually have a real chance of competing? In other news, Donald Trump's 2 older sons are apparently launching a DeFi-related crypto project called the Defiant Ones, and the former president endorsed it. Other than that, not much is known about it at all yet. I suppose in the near future we'll learn. Without knowing the details, can't comment on whether this is legit, whether the functionality makes sense. However, I will say that as someone who has one of the larger DeFi YouTubes that actually has DeFi in the name, I'm happy to see people using the term DeFi. I'm happy to see that in headlines outside of just crypto news. I believe that DeFi is going to be a multi-trillion-dollar industry, and seeing powerful people get involved helps to affirm that belief. In other news, Grayscale is launching an Avalanche AVAX trust. What I'd really like to see here, and I don't have this in front of me, but I'd really like to see some analysis of, do tokens generally perform better following a Grayscale trust? Does it affect their performance compared to the market? Maybe they perform worse, or does it have no effect? I'd really like to see that analysis. Another piece of news, prediction markets continue to go crazy. $123 million locked in prediction markets now, up from in mid-2023 around 16 million. So this has become a pretty important crypto category driven by Polymarket. Unfortunately, there's no way to invest in Polymarket, but it's growing rapidly. This is, by the way, if you've never used a prediction market, basically this lets you bet on any sort of world event, largely politics though. So these are growing a lot because people are betting on the election. One thing that's important to note is that Drift Protocol, one of the leading perp dexes on Solana, has now launched their own prediction market called Bet on Drift. So if you want some exposure to this narrative, at least part of Drift is a prediction market, but keep in mind it's also a perp dex, and they do have a relatively high FDV compared to their circulating market cap. Another category that is doing pretty well in terms of TVL growth is derivatives. So these are on-chain perp trading. This has been growing pretty steadily even during the summer. You might get some idea that price has been ranging, but it looks almost like it's been ranging, curving upwards over the summer. And if you look at the total money that's made in, for example, centralized exchanges, being able to recreate that business on chain would really bring a ton of new money and real fees into the DeFi ecosystem. Another piece of news, Story Protocol, which is an on-chain IP blockchain, announced that they raised $140 million in total, with an $80 million Series B led by A16Z Crypto. Very impressive. Congrats, Story Protocol. Cool to see a new use case gaining traction. Unfortunately, with these large rounds, oftentimes it means that there's less upside to get in on the public market, but we'll see what it debuts at. I have no exposure. Another good sign, the altcoin speculation index earlier this week reached its lowest point since July 2023. Oftentimes that can be a good time to get in. To wrap things up, let's talk about some yield opportunities today. First off, Balancer and CowSwap launched a joint new AMM. This has already accumulated over $14 million in deposits, and there's pretty good yields, especially on some DeFi tokens right now. If you just want USDC and ETH, you can earn nearly 15% on this. And again, this is from two of the most battle-tested, seasoned applications in DeFi. But if you want DeFi tokens specifically, there's really good yields. For example, there is currently 32% on Maker and Wrapped ETH, and 36% on Aave and Wrapped ETH. On Camino, on Solana, there's also some good opportunities right now, particularly with regards to PayPal USD. By lending out PyUSD in their main market, you can currently earn over 15%. And as I've said many times, although PyUSD is relatively new, given its association with PayPal, I am expecting it to have a very strong reliability as far as its peg, since it's backed by such a large company. Another interesting opportunity, and this isn't new, I've talked about it before and it's been around for a little while, but one that's kind of interesting to me is Pel Network. Pel Network is the first BTC restaking network, and it's across nearly all of the Bitcoin side chains plus several other chains right now. And the reason this is interesting is, first off, we've seen what can happen with restaking protocols and how big Eigenlayer got, and Pel Network could conceivably get much larger because it only has to get a very small proportion of Bitcoin to do so. But what I think is really interesting about this is it's not really clear yet which Bitcoin sidechain or layer 2 is going to win, but applications like Pel that build across many of them allow you to get exposure to the entire narrative without choosing a specific chain. If you want more DeFi updates, news, on-chain analysis, and farms, be sure to check out my newsletter, dynamodefi.substack.com. Here we include all of that in a very concise 5-minute read every single week. So check it out again, dynamodefi.substack.com. And for more videos like this one, be sure to like and subscribe. Until next time, this is Dynamo DeFi.